Okay, hello everyone. This is the State License Requirements Working Group, and we're going to start by Cass doing the roll.
Andy Bayowski, Casey O'Neill,
Yes.
Chantel Destre, Bryn Powell, Bill Clark, Ellen Drell, Rita Berstad, Lynn Nelson, Jude Tillman, here, Julia Carrera, Karen Byers, Kathy Rick Sellers, Hansberry,
From Sacramento.
Great. Hey, Paul.
Susan Tibbins,
Present Sacramento.
Ron Bean,
Right here.
excuse me, Crandall,
Here.
Janelle Rao,
Here.
Diane Curry, here, Mary Lynn Hunt, here, Sarah here. Anyone who may be on the call?
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Cass. All right. So where we left off at the last meeting was Hannah, Julia, and Jude volunteered to put together a draft for us, reading issues of state licensing. And so we have that to go over today. But just for anybody new on the call, the intent is that we'll put together a white paper, whatever you want to call it, that deal with issues and options for solutions, and that will go to the board with a report out from this working group as soon as we can. And I'll tell you, the last working group, which was building requirements, in that working group, we're thinking that we are going to go to the board in November. There's 3 board meetings in November, the 7th, the 13th, and the 14th. And it would be nice to be able to go to the board with this working group as well. And so, and when we do, just so everyone knows, it's not going to be staff presenting. It will be a combined, members of the working group predominantly will present. Usually how this works is that staff will open it up, tell the board what we've done, where we are, turn it over to the working group participants, have dialogue. Okay, so with that, we have the state update, and we have Jude and Hannah here. Julia's not here. So would somebody like to start? We can dive right in.
Sure. This is Hannah Nelson, and Jude and Julia and I worked pretty hard through the evening yesterday to finish this. One of the only potential pitfalls about the hope to bring this to the board in early November is that one of the action items is to try and do something very, very quickly. And this multifaceted approach to a bunch of issues that are coming down the pike with respect to us being prepared for the state licensing. And first item has to do with taking a proactive approach to the current writing of emergency regs, which is going on by state agencies. We were fortunate enough to have the state agencies release their responses to the public comments from the previous proposed regulations. All of those previous regulations have been withdrawn because they have to integrate OMA into the Safety Act and maybe what they see. Essentially, it gives us a good guideline as to what they were thinking about certain issues. Later in the memo, you'll see that there are another facet of our approach is to respond to when the emergency regs come out. But prior to just waiting for a response, the comments and responses by the state agencies gave us a good roadmap as to some of the issues that there is wiggle room with the state emergency regulations and where they are looking for input with stakeholders. So I feel like it's really, really important, and I know Jude and Julia also concur with is that we not just wait to respond to the emergency regs, but we do a heroic effort, if it's at all possible, to be effective and give them suggestions now while they're writing the emergency regs as the issues that are important to us. And there's two reasons for that. One is, once the emergency regs get released, there's an extremely short comment period, and although we want to be poised to comment to that, the reality is, in most instances, when the state issues emergency regulations, they are not going to change them based on public comment. That's just a likelihood. I'm not saying not ever, but it's a likelihood. So it seems that we would want to take our first bite at the apple now while they're still writing them, especially in relation to the issues that they said there is wiggle room for. So I don't know that we have to actually go. I do think that it's important that we agree on the issues that should be presented to the state in whatever juncture. We listed some. There are probably others that might be important to people, but we wanted to have just, a certain defined list. Those are the A through G through H on pages 1 through 3. The item number 2 was, well, let's just stick on this and maybe we can go to the rest of that.
Can we go through?
Sure, I
would
absolutely
really
have.
like you to.
Sure. So the first one that we're
I hope everybody's on board with that.
is refine the definition of canopy to exclude walkways and space. I think we talked about that last week. There is, in fact, wiggle room in the response from the state for the prior rate, so I think that we have a shot. If we say how important it is, we've got a shot at moving that needle.
And Paul has been working extensively on that.
Paul, are you on the call? Do you want to give us any update about what you've been doing the last few days?
Yeah, let Susan speak first, and then I'll follow her. Hold complete.
Okay.
We wish we could have been with you today, but some of yesterday's meetings were moved to today. We've spoken with the following people addressing some of the issues that were just presented by Julia, as well as additional issues. So we're working with Steve Woods, who is Chief of the Department of Health, Paul Lee, who is Legislative Director for Jim Wood, Assemblyman 2nd District, one of the writers of the statute, Darcy Peters, Special Assistant to the Speaker of the House, Anthony Rendon, Patrick Nevis, Senior Permit Specialist for the Governor. I'll start with Patrick. He has been working with the Coastal Commission and understands the importance of getting them to move forward and has promised to do that. Finally, we have reiterated the language on canopy, that needs to be clarified and corrected. We've been about the use of ethanol in a non-volatile way for medicine makers, business, home business, and cottage industry, trying to find definitions and make them clearer of us, as well as looking into the 1 to 3 employees without triggering ADA compliance. Also looking at adjusting the serving versus dosage. 10 milligrams per dose is fixed, positive 64. However, 10 doses per package can change, and the people that are working on that. Mycoactive testers and samples, topicals, we're working on making those available. Right now, they will not be allowed, but there is wiggle room there. And I'm going to turn this over to Paul for any additional questions or clarification.
Hi, this is Paul Hansberry. So when we spoke with Darcy Sears, there was supposed to be a number of people she invited to the meeting who couldn't make it. That's why we had to stay the extra day. She had a whole list of things that Susan just enumerated that she would be into.
Paul, I'm also having a hard time hearing you.
Is that any better?
Able to hear Susan.
Yes, much better.
Okay, let's do it this way then. Spoke with Darcy Sears. There's a whole list of things, 2 pages of topics that we went over in detail. There were supposed to be a number of people that she invited to that meeting that couldn't make it for one reason or another. That's the reason we stayed the extra day and we're not present there today. So we took, afterwards we spoke with, Darcy will look into the Coastal Commission as well, as along with the other line items that Susan just mentioned. Paul Ramey from Assemblyman Wood's office was the person who wrote the specialty cottage regulation or legislation. We spoke with him this morning, and he was talking about the differences between a voter initiative and legislation, and mapping the two into the trailer bill. We pointed out to him, using the regulations, that he does have the ability to do certain things without sending it back to the voters. And we clarified that with him because he's been lobbied by a number of lawyers that had to support all of the A through K, all the different conditions. But that's not actually true. It just can't contradict any of the others. It only has to satisfy one. We also reminded him and showed him on the statute that he's responsible as the architect of the special cottage, but he's allowed to make special regulations about specialty cottage that might be different from other regulations in those different categories, such as manufacturing, such as micro business. And he agreed with that, and he said that he is going to work on that for special cottage so that there would be different requirements. So, you know, perhaps lessened security, perhaps, different kinds of track and trace methods, et cetera. So things that would be more suitable to a home business, and creating a micro business for specialty cottage as a home business. And we spoke to everyone about setting tiers for micro business. Were tagged to or related to the cultivation level, and that was very, very well received. There's stipulations that cultivators will have 6 months now to move material with a sticker that says it was not tested because they don't have the testing. So that'll be part of the temporary license that the testing process is not developed yet. So for 6 months, you will not have to have those stickers. The dosage versus serving, they're going to adjust that between edibles and medicine as far as package requirements and package size. The idea of canopy, we made copies of the Mendocino and their regulations and explained to them with photographs with circles and arrows in the back of each one that what a canopy actually was, and how we never really had thought we had to. Well, basically, we told them that if you're going to be defining it as grow space, grow space. If you're going to be defining it as canopy, call it canopy. But don't confuse us with calling canopy grow space. And that was very well received, actually. So they're going to do one of two things. They were either going to change the name from grow space, or from canopy to grow space, which is not likely, but it would be much easier for them, or they'll change the definition of the canopy. Because we explained to them that for indoor and for mixed light, the grow space is defined by the building or by the hoop house or what have you. But with outdoor, with other crops like corn, carrots, vegetables, integrated pest management, that the grow space may be much larger, and explain to them that on the definition of canopy, say in Mendocino County, we may be able to have a specialty cottage license, but by definition of the state, we might have to have a half an acre of grow space and apply for a much larger, more expensive license. All of these things were very well received. Waiting now on a call back from Steve Woods. It was very well received. He said he would talk to the people that are writing the regulations with regards to ethanol being used in a non-volatile manner, if that can be demonstrated. So he was very interested in that and said he would talk to his regulators, and waiting now for a phone call back from him about that. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Paul or Susan, last thing on ethanol, I thought they'd already made a change in 8133.
They actually haven't. What they changed was the language in ALMA. They changed from ALMA. They changed the definition from poisonous and toxic to things that were ignitable or flammable. But in ALMA, it also says that and this is what we pointed out to the people up here, is that it also said unless authorized by a state license. So it gives them the authority to do that, to authorize it by a state license by the application process. The exact language was that volatile organic compounds and dangerous poisons, toxins, or carcinogens, unless in accordance with the state license, and changed it to solvent that is produces flammable gas or vapor that are present in air sufficient quantities which are creating explosive ignitable mixtures. It still includes ethanol. But what we're hanging our hat on is that unless in accordance with a state license, and they have the ability to do that if it can be demonstrated in the application process, is being performed in a safe manner, like making a tincture or a UL-approved device.
The AB 133 language changed from what was signed in June by stripping out the list of toxic substances and instead redefining volatile and non-volatile in terms of the system and the process. So non-volatile being a closed system without a chance of vapors, explosive vapors being present in the air.
And I want to clarify one other thing. In the comments released by the Department of Public Health in response to the prior regulations, when they're talking about manufacturing license type as regards to ethanol, they wrote, based on comments received, CDPH will further clarify the use of ethanol manufacturing, ethanol extraction, if used in a manner that creates a risk of explosion or fire, such as high heat or pressure, would be classified as type 7 license. Other uses of ethanol, such as tinctures or winterization to refine extracts, would be considered type 6.
Right. Yeah.
What you wanted?
Yes, it's a purging solution. It's not. Yeah.
So I'm going to get that. Should we get back to the memo, or you?
No, I have one more question for them.
Does that only ethanol can be extracted at low temperatures, freezing temperatures too? How would that actually be? Would that be class 6 or class 7?
So from what she just read, it'd be class 6. Because if you have the high temperature, you don't have the explosive combustible
high pressure
aspect. Yeah, unless it's under its high pressure, right? Yeah. So, Paul, I have another question. Going back to Patrick, I didn't get where he's from, but he's there working on the Coastal Commission. What does that mean? Did you get any other kind of sense of where they're at with that?
We did. Normally, Patrick Nevis, who is Senior Permit Specialist in the Governor's Office, as well as a number of other people, are very aware of the time sensitivity with getting the Coastal Commission going. So Patrick has been working with them on other issues and is happy to try and move them along in terms of our issues in Mendocino County. But it's hard and fast information. We just met with him, about 12, 15 hours ago, so we're going to be following up on that.
Outside the Coastal Commission is aware of how important it is to move things forward. Have we heard anything from anyone in the Coastal Commission?
And the common perception is that the Coastal Commission is typically moved at a glacial pace. But we have a number of people now that are aware of the issues up and down the state, and we told them that certain counties are just going ahead and moving forward, like as Jude mentioned, but with San Luis Obispo. They promised that they would talk to the people that they knew of and please try to instill a sense of urgency about this because it's so important and time sensitive.
Are we ready to go back to Hannah going over our draft document.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Paul and Susan.
The next item B on page 1 is co-location of micro-business activities under separate license and same licensee. Mendocino County has taken the lead to protect environment and natural resources, in part by limiting permitted cultivation to maximum of 10,000 square feet of canopy for flowering cannabis and up to 12,000 square feet of immature plants for nurseries. As such, all of our cultivators are small compared to the state licensing levels. The primary way for our cannabis producers to compete in the larger market is to engage in value-added activities, to take advantage of micro-business licenses, and/or to cooperatively and collectively share costs for expensive facilities and processes.
So part of the whole thing.
No.
Oh, good, thank you. All right, so at any rate, this is just language to encourage them to look at the issue, and again, each of these topics, there was wiggle room in the comments from the state. We didn't include anything that there wasn't some indication that there would be wiggle room, and that's why we're bringing these forward as something that we're trying to encourage them to move that needle. The next item.
Hold on, can we comment on items as we go along, or wait till the very end?
Yeah, let's
I thought we should comment as we go.
Okay, absolutely.
I'm going to have to sit out in a few minutes, but I just want to make one brief thing on page 3 on emergency reg. The commentary is 5 days. 3 weeks.
Oh.
I'm going to rethink that because you got 5 calendar days.
Calendar days, too.
Calendar days from the moment that they did. So think about when we get.
Yeah.
Under 3A. Right, the F3A, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Not
so
instead of 2 weeks, it's 5 days?
Yeah, you have 5 calendar days to respond to emergency reg. So you can comment afterwards and they'll consider it if you want to get in.
Okay. We have to be
So
ready.
we actually have to address
Yeah.
So,
for that.
Friday after.
so that,
So when it comes up, we'll have a meeting next day.
Yeah.
well, that plays right into what Hannah's introduction was, and my comment about was actually on A, that we have to be proactive and ahead of things. So this, what we've just done with A on page 1, redefines definition of canopy to exclude walkways and space, is not at all what Paul and Susan reported they're planning to do. They're either going to change the name to grow space so they can go wall to wall with a tape measure, or they're going to change their definition of canopy, which is completely against what we know canopy to be, whether it's a small plant indoor or it's a huge plant outdoor, it's drip line. So, I mean, this is kind of...
Actually, Jude, what I understood was that if they changed the definition, that would conform to drip line as opposed to the definition that they're using now. That's what I understood, and I think that we want to encourage them to do that.
Yeah, I
rather
didn't hear.
than-
Okay, if that's what you heard too, Mary Lynn?
That's
Yeah.
what I did hear that.
Okay, great. Then
So maybe on item A, we want to be more specific. I think it says it, refine definitions. Yeah.
And that's
Anything else?
we were bringing forward to the people in Sacramento and letting them know that what a drip line was. They didn't really understand that until they saw the pictures and the differences in the size plants. That canopy is canopy, the grow space is grow space, and he seemed surprised at that.
Okay, that's why they're in Sacramento. So, and you've turned to page 2. So I just want to, and I didn't know if Mary Lynn had any comments she wanted to make under B or not.
No, because we will, either the zoning table will allow multiple
Okay.
businesses now.
Okay.
And really, this has to do with the loosening up of separate distinct premises, and that has been changed. So we just want to make sure that the way that it's massaged in the regulations would take into account the considerations that we want. Because again, we know that now it's possible. Okay. C is kind of similar, but a little bit different, about, small neighborhood drying and processing for different license holders. Again, that's just one example, but our whole model here is that if we have to have the kind of facilities for each and every grower that might be required, and of course we're working on the other end of lessening those requirements through use of ag exempt permits and whatnot, but we want to encourage collective use of resources so that we don't have a proliferation of unnecessary infrastructure and traffic and whatever, you know. So I think that it's to do with this issue was the same license holder in a micro business having multiple businesses at the same location. This issue is different license holders being able to use the same facility and still being under track and trace in one.
The last sentence in this one, from a personal perspective, is just for example, that's exactly what my brother's farm right next door to our farm. We have always counted it as one farm, and so that's one of the things we're encountering and looking at drying and processing. It's like, wow, we're struggling with building one set of drying and processing, let alone separating building two sets. So
Under the current table that we're, the board with staff to address, which they need, okay.
Yeah.
So county-wide, we're on good ground, okay.
Yes, I think that, and that was the other thing that I was kind of trying to keep an eye out for, is to make sure we weren't also trying to do something that was not in keeping with what we've just been slogging through at the county level. There might be a little bit of massaging that needs to happen.
As well as all the building problems, it's just when you have a site where you have to keep your stuff there, that's security. You've got to keep somebody there all year. I've got 2 properties. For me to have to be have them both have to be that secure when I can just bring all over one and then use that is so this definitely makes sense. It's really necessary.
And number D was mentioned in the comments from both CFA and CDPH about more time for track and trace, so I think that's not going to be a big hurdle. And E is a reduction in the extensive security requirements, and again, that was mentioned in CDH's. I don't think it was mentioned in CDFA's comments.
one of the big issues with this is that CFA has not included video cameras at all in any of their drafts. I asked Amber Morris specifically 2 weeks ago, do you expect to see any changes in the security stuff? And she said no. So from the farm perspective, we're not looking at video cameras at all, but the draft that came out of the Bureau regs did include extensive security requirements. And so from the dispensary perspective, obviously that's a different story. From the cultivation perspective, I feel there's more calls on this issue than anything else altogether, because people actually, it's like, it's not included in the
But were there other issues besides video cameras, like wearing name tags on the farm? Okay, that's
That was all Bureau, because it was name tags, visitors have to check in, all these things, because I initially read those Bureau regs, and I was like, oh my, and then I called Hezekiah, and he was like, you're reading the Bureau regs, buddy, that's not CDA.
Yeah, they were
so maybe we want to edit this and remove the words especially for cultivators, because if it's not applicable to cultivators, then we still feel like we advocate for this for especially our dispensaries who have never had any problems. But if we remove especially for cultivators, is that cool?
Yeah, that would be good, because if you looked at the original, what was signed in June, and maybe there's just like added, but it was the average for all the sectors that were licensed by the state. The average requirements were a half a page to a page and a half. They had 14 pages of dispensary requirements. It was just a killer. I mean, I think that they were all written for East LA or something. I don't know what they were written for.
So I'm gonna also suggest that we remove that last sentence, additionally having camera requirements at all points on a large parcel is invisible, because it's really not applicable if we're talking about manufacturers and
Yeah, that's got it.
and dispensaries.
And distribution.
And distribution.
That's essentially, I think, distribution is what's driving a lot of the
Sure.
heavy security
Sure.
requirements because of the aggregation and processing processes that are going to be happening there.
As long as we're on this point, it's coming up. So are we going to have an opportunity before, as part of what this committee presents to the state, to pare down what they're requiring for retail establishments in Mendocino County? I mean, it's just security guards, all kinds of stuff we've never, ever had to do, never needed to do, And it's
So that's what this is asking for, is reduce it.
Yeah, but I mean, get really nailed get that into it, because this is just a general statement of reducing extensive security requirements.
I mean, and it does speak mostly cultivation.
Yeah.
Bullet points of specific issues.
Yeah. Some of them are.
Why don't you go ahead and just take, now that it's clear that it doesn't apply to cultivators, but think about some of the quasi ability of manufacturers and processors that might be, of course, retail, of course, but in other words, some of the processors might actually be on larger parcels, so it may be, well, I don't know, I think you could just take a stab at making both points.
To piggyback on that, make sure that processing as a separate license doesn't get lumped into extensive security requirements when you're talking about, for instance, you know, like me and my brother are processing together and all of a sudden we're video cameras and all of this stuff in my home. So it does, you know, processing is kind of that rub of when it's an ancillary use to cultivation, it's still totally ag department, but when it becomes a separate license, who's licensing it and how that's going to happen.
Is it the Bureau?
That I'm not sure about, so it's something that we should be tracking for sure. And I'm happy to check into that.
And actually, that kind of dovetails also with C, which is essentially saying if people are processing together in a shared facility, shouldn't require necessarily a separate processing license.
Yeah, I think that a lot. I mean, that would be great.
So Jude will come back with bullet points on E changed around.
And I'll check in terms of the processing license.
Great. F is about transportation. We discussed this extensively last time, so I don't think I really need to go through it.
I do have an update.
Great.
Okay, may I jump in with a update on transportation from Sacramento? We have an update on transportation from Sacramento.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
In terms of cultivators on 10,000 square feet, we're probably looking at called free commercial transport be allowed.
Pre-commercial, yeah.
As in before going to the dispensary, but under 10,000 square feet, it looks like we're going to see the cultivator being allowed to do at least some transport.
Wow.
And that details with, what I've been hearing is essentially something along the lines of distribution light.
Yeah.
And not coming out of the legislature, but coming out of the regulatory process. Not sure whether it would be under the Bureau or under CDFA, but that it's strictly transport, so it's not testing, it's not taxation, so it's not a traditional distribution license, but that it allows for, exactly like Susan said, pre-commercial transport.
Well, so here's the question, because there's what is the most distinguishing characteristic about a distributor license is that they only move cannabis and cannabis products from licensee to licensee. So this is something that would be perhaps covering our delivery, our later delivery H or it is.
So this is so nothing.
Nothing commercial at all.
Nothing commercial, yeah, strictly from licensed cultivator, either to licensed manufacturer or to licensed distributor.
Or to testing.
Okay, so.
Testing would be samples, it wouldn't be whole product.
Right. Now the distributor's got to do the testing.
Yeah, that's there isn't going to be able to engage in testing because it's going to have to enter a quarantine. I mean, unless it's private that, but then it's essentially a large-scale cultivator could distribution license, establish the quarantine, and et cetera, but that's not going to happen.
Well, and that was kind of a question that at the last sentence of the top of page 3, they're a little unclear to us as we were discussing it last night as to whether or not you were a micro business but chose to not have to get a distributor license, but you were manufacturing and cultivating. How does that leave you, you know?
This provision would settle that, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So the next issue is, and again, this was taken not because I feel like this is such a high priority that it compelled me to write this, but I was working off of the state comments to the previous proposed regulations. And so they mentioned the generators and that they realized that maybe it's more sensible to phase out rather than, so that addresses that, and we're doing that.
And is the state still expected to authorize it for backup, or is it, or generators? It's a backup. That was one of the,
I am not sure. And I think I mentioned that we allow it for backups. Yeah. And then H is what Jude was starting to talk about in terms of commercial transfer, use of delivery services. So, for example, dispensaries that have always relied on delivery services to get product to their customers.
To the patients directly. It's direct service. So this is Matt, who has one services.
Yeah.
No, we're not a delivery service.
Oh, there you
Distribution.
go.
We're not direct to consumer.
Oh, okay.
That was the confusion.
That was the confusion with Julia. Okay, because Julia put me on to you as the person who's going to give us language.
Yeah, very confused by that.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Never mind, Matt's not here.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Good to be
Really, I'm just, yeah,
Do you have any information about whatever happened to delivery services that are not, well,
there's an independent delivery license at this point. Yeah. That's part of the Monkers package.
Okay.
That was a strategic priority for us for 2 years, and so that was just a non-brick delivery license possibility.
well, only if, yeah, that's,
If you have a location,
It can't be out of a car, but.
but this is the problem.
Retail.
But this is the problem. The main ones across the state of California who do that, they use subcontractors because they can't have a fleet of trucks that travel the entire state of California. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're coming out of a brick and mortar retail establishment or you just have a warehouse, it doesn't matter. It's the same problem.
Warehouse is a location.
Yeah, that's fine. Those are covered. But I'm talking about we can't possibly deliver to the state of California without using other courier services.
I don't think that the licensee has to have a premises of some sort.
Yeah, that's all covered. That's covered. The problem is that we do not have, there's no license allowed for a specific delivery of commercial cannabis and cannabis products throughout the state of California on behalf of either a brick and mortar or a warehouse.
Well, because the brick and mortar or house would be the licensee and
But we need, no, can't do that because that would kill us. Because, for instance, the handful of non-brick and mortar delivery services of which my wholesale products, Bhutan, are a part of, True Pharma is the example. They go all over the state. They deliver direct to patients in clinics, and they use courier services. Because otherwise, you're saying, no, you can no longer use a courier service. You have to come up with trucks and drivers and a mega $1-million operation.
well, why can't the courier service apply for transportation?
There is none. So, like,
there's a license. But I'm also not clear that a subcontractor is not acceptable this is
this is why I wrote this proposed language. I don't know if you got a chance to read this. It's because I talked to the BCC. They are considering putting up together something about the delivery of commercial cannabis and the use of courier services. Here's the catch. If you have one license in the 20 license system that doesn't license at all, it's not held to the same standard. It's a weak link from its perspective. That's where it all goes to Mexican cartel. That's where the diversion sphere, you know. So we need to have a license in which they simply, as a courier service, to meet certain minimum state standards, and we can use them, especially for those of us in big counties. And this would be crazy. We'd have to put millions of dollars into fleets of vans.
So should we change the word delivery to courier, because maybe this is the confusion that it's talking about on not somebody who's just exclusively in the business of providing cannabis to patients. No, they're a transportation service.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're talking about a shipper, not a distributor, someone who just physically
Courier, I think that was the
delivers
right word.
Yeah.
Well, the state's using use of courier services. It's under the delivery. It's not under transportation. It's not under distribution. It's under delivery of cannabis.
Do we add?
Payment taxes in that situation.
Yeah. Well, it'd be through the source, the retailer.
And so that was the confusing thing to me, was that the delivery service would still be the licensee, but it's a question of contracting with or subcontracting.
Courier,
with other
yeah.
vendors.
And I think you're allowed to do that.
No, because what standard, they're going to have to just have a set of standards.
No, they have to be, actually, they have to be in place.
No, but as we go on.
I know between delivery services is, where is that delivery service basing where they're storing the weed in that town?
No, they are not. The two entities that handle the product, and this is where your point of taxation is and your point of track and trace, are either the brick and mortar retailer, dispensaries, or the non-brick and mortar delivery service, for which there are licenses. The problem is that
Brick and mortar ones storing their meth.
in their warehouse, they can have a warehouse, a non-public opened, no, it reads, you don't have to be open to the public. And that's where you can get your medicine from a distributor, you pay the taxes through the distributor, da-da-da-da. All of that's fine. But everybody who delivers medicine to patients who are in these huge, vast oases, as Americans for Access have said, there's these huge swaths of territory in California where there's no place to get cannabis medicine because there's bans by counties or whatever. So to date, people are using delivery services.
So we're going to run into this problem. Part of the goal is to be able to deliver in municipalities where there are questions.
Yeah, you can.
I don't think that's ever
a different. That question exists regardless for retail dispensaries or for warehouses that are being delivered. That's a whole other issue that they have to take up with those municipalities, and that's a different fight.
So too, then how does the courier get
the product? They pick it up from the retailer or the delivery, the entity, the non-brick and mortar
So it seems like
entity.
we just need a provision for subcontractors to be able to engage with a licensee that's along the track and
So
trace.
that's what BCC says they're looking into. The question is, how do they keep them accountable in the same stringent way that they're keeping both brick and mortar and warehouse services?
But if they place the responsibility on the brick and mortar and the delivery licensees, and basically, like any other transportation, their contract of when the liability switches. The way the state has come to do that is by permission to deploy these deliveries, which means small entities like Dragonfly would have to have a fleet of vans and a whole bunch of employees and workers' comp and all of that.
It seems like they could easily do that. Rather than transferring it to the consumer, you're transferring it to the
Delivery service.
delivery service, and that, once it goes to the consumer, then
Well, because there's an interim there. What she's saying is, so let's just say a physical example. You here in Mendocino County are eventually trying to get a bulk product to a Southern California delivery service, not a courier, and so you use a courier to get it to the delivery service. The way that the law is written now, you have to have that courier be an employee of one or the other of the licensees. What she's saying is we need some mechanism where we can use a subcontractor, and maybe that is the key to unpacking this confusion
Yeah.
is use of subcontracted careers and services.
Who are still accountable to the track and trace system.
Accountable.
You have to understand what's at stake here. This is not just about me and one. Everybody who has product, everybody who has added value product in the producer counties need to get it to the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Why grow it, right?
So let me, use of subcontractor, courier, and transportation services to other licensees, because we don't even have to be.
No, because that's a distributor. I'll take care of the language, because I've got the language from, I'll take care of it.
Great.
But I just make sure it's in our recommendation.
Yes. So those were the one that we initially came up with, and again, the context here is us trying to swiftly submit something to the board to approve, to then have the working group and the board say to the state, you're writing these emergency regs, these are the concerns that we have, please consider them. Are there any that we didn't think of that need to be in there that again, is just in this limited context of the emergency regs? Not changing legislation, not anything else. Well, if anybody thinks of anything before we finalize this, then language.
Number 2 is big.
So, yeah, this is, again, now, we're kind of on county end of things, not in what we need to advocate with the state. This is more what the county needs to be prepared for the state licenses, and I think that.
So we are working on this. This is the big thing. It's
Exactly.
the working facilities meeting, and you will have something on Tuesday or probably Friday to take a look at.
Right.
Fabulous.
That will apply to cultivation also, most likely.
Well, kind of
For non-cultivation.
right. I think the cultivation is the easy one because we have the embossed thing. So I kind of got the sense from the board meeting, I don't know if anybody else did, that that's kind of like, yeah, we'll use that. The really tricky one was facilities because of the business license thing.
Well, and the question remains, will the state accept?
So,
These are other authorization releases.
so maybe we should make allow local jurisdictions to define their other authorizations. That way, that's what they're concerned with, is that the local jurisdiction is not going to be subterfused in any way. So if we allow local jurisdictions to determine what qualifies as a other authorization, I think that the state would be happy.
I think they will.
Okay, so we're going to add I to number 1 is allow local jurisdictions to determine what constitutes other authorization.
Okay, so what you mean by a week from tomorrow?
Well, the board's going to take the first reading on Tuesday, so
The following Tuesday.
the 10th, that's the 10th.
The 10th is the first reading, the 17th is the second reading.
So tomorrow we're working on Thursday, right here.
Today's Thursday.
So that's this language by tomorrow?
No,
I'm just talking about what the county is putting in the facilities code as far as.
Did she publish?
Yeah.
No? Did she publish?
She's going to do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
So that's kind of taken care of. 3, ongoing rapid response team recommendation, and this really has to do with what Sarah said before. We have to adjust the time frame way significantly because we saw it as a 3-step process. People being poised to get those emergency regs, hammer out anything that might be important to our local jurisdiction and get it before the board to, yes, we agree that we should send these in, and then boom, send it in. And so that's kind of a heroic thing, and I really encourage that whatever rapid response team there is from our group, that we absolutely request that one supervisor be a part of that, because I think it would cut out a lot of time when they're having to present, then when we're presenting it back to them.
One issue is that if we don't know, we know when they're going to release the draft regs, with Sarah said about 5 days to comment, we can't, unless we know when the regs are going to come out, we can't calendar it to the board in time to be able to windows too short.
Well, we can worry about that, yes. We can get it to the board no matter what, even if we have to ask for a special meeting.
And Casey, is there a way?
The greater problem is trying to get a response in 5 days, not getting it.
Right. I would
Try to
bet
write
the money they're going to release it on Friday.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Do we have any way of putting anybody at the state to know when they're going to really, I mean, I know.
We usually do give you a heads up. The commissioner, so I can,
See if you can, because it would be great if we, even if it doesn't wind up being that exact time frame, if we could have some.
We've asked that to
Can you
everyone.
speak louder, please?
We asked that question to everyone we spoke to, and they all say probably sometime in November. Nobody knows.
Well, it's November, we're trying to nail it down as to when, maybe.
Well, I was trying to say nobody seems to know.
Thanksgiving. Okay, so the second last prong is data system for submitting affirmative local good standing certificate or not in good standing response. And the board has previously indicated that it would be inclined to issue affirmative good standing. This is it's a different issue than the provisional license issue, and that's why I have it as a separate thing.
And it actually is well in advance of January. It needs to be before December. The state's going to start issuing temporary licenses in December, so this is actually.
I think that's.
But this is not for the temporaries. This is for, this is different. Other authorization.
also to do with cultivation?
Has to do with any kind of licensing. So the provisional, as I understand it, and until we see the emergency regs, we won't know for sure. The temporary state licenses are going to need that authorization from us. When then somebody gets a provisional license for the state and they're working on their whole packet for their regular license or non-provisional license with the state, what they're going to need then is the good standing just in general. So this is a different process.
I was of the impression that I was of the impression that to get the temporary state license that are getting issued in December, you not only be good standing, but do you already have to have your permit issued? So that was one of the things I was unclear on, is what would be the threshold for applying for the temporary state license.
Okay, so I think that those are two separate issues, and it depends on whether or not they pick up the old priority. This originally came out of who has priority, and it was unclear in the trailer bill and AB 133 whether or not, because they've come up with this provisional license, does that tank the priority once it gets the regular, or are doing provisional for anybody who wants provisional, but you don't necessarily, like you said, have to have a provisional in order to get apply for a state, but in order to get priority standing and how those are processed, you have to have the good standing. And until we see the emergency regs, we're not going to know the answer, so we have to be prepared for both.
Can you explain it to me about 10 more times?
Sure. I'm so confused. Okay, I'm going to do this because, sorry for the people. Maybe somebody else.
I just want to say, time check, we have 30 minutes left. We're gonna do this, yeah, and then we still want to hear from Casey.
Yes.
You did hit
Okay.
mine already.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Okay,
We all want to hear.
Okay.
Originally, before the two pieces of legislation got merged, the SAFE Act and PALMA, originally under the Safety Act, when you apply for a state license is you get a certificate of good standing, and that would enable you to have priority processing in your application. From the county, okay? But then what happened was, because OMA got passed, the trailer bill, and maybe 133, all of a sudden, because there was a need for provisional licenses, this other mechanism grew up, and that's where you have, I'm sorry, I want to back up one second, I'm so sorry. Good thing, that was, remember Matt was talking about there's three ways you could do something affirmative.
We can be quiet and it would go along.
Right.
We could say great, or we could say no.
Exactly. So that's in that part. It just under regular state license. Then all of a sudden, what came into effect is these provisional licenses. All of a sudden had to have another mechanism to make sure that people weren't contrary to their local jurisdiction. So because a lot of local jurisdictions didn't have licensing or permitting programs up and running yet, that's why they have either permit, license, or other authorization to qualify for a provisional license. So what we don't know is what happened to that original good standing when you're applying regular license. The provisional stuff, take that, or are they still going to do? And we don't know the answer yet, so we need to be prepared for both.
What is this, right? What's told up here is that they will ask the county if they're in compliance. So as far as the county knows, if they're in compliance, they say yes, they're good to go. They can get their temporary license from the state. And if at such time they say they're not in compliance, then they just withdraw the license, and they're trying to keep it as simple as that.
But the question is, for about temporary licenses, what happens with permanent licenses? Are they still going to require you to submit a certificate of good standing for your permanent license if you haven't gotten a provisional, or you have gotten a provisional? There's different circumstances.
Well, again, the answer that I got to that was very simple. The temporary license is just something for 120 days because they're not ready to issue them yet. So when it is time for permanent license, you will still have your application in place, and it will just transfer over to a permanent license. So
right.
They don't need to ask the county twice. If for some reason the applicant falls out of compliance on a local level, they need to notify the state, and then they yank their license. Otherwise, things proceed as things become available.
But then, so the question becomes: is the state letting go of the way of establishing priority processing of licenses? Because the way that the good standing certificate also came about was to entitle you to priority processing of your application.
The caveat that it was in operation prior to January 1, 2016.
Right, which all, at least on the cultivation side, ours are.
And piggybacking on that, the extreme importance of not focusing on Jan 1 as last issuing, but December 1, because that's when the state's going to start doing temporary licenses. And so if you hit Jan 1, you don't have a temporary license, you can't do any business. And so you're going to need to have the provisional authorization from the county in place November 30, whatever. So that's one of the things that's really, really important from the county perspective, is that to the beginning of December, all the businesses have some sort of provisional authorization to get the temporary state license.
And that's what's worked into the facility, and that'll be up and running, hopefully November, whatever.
17th.
Yeah, that's what, getting paperwork done by December 1st, that's a whole other story. So I'm curious to know how many people are really gonna come in. I'm very.
Non-cultivation.
For cultivation, I mean.
Non-cultivation.
I would say you'd see 100.
Really?
I would, you know, I would be surprised if it was less than that.
Yeah, there's, I can tell you, it's Thanksgiving week, and there is,
Well, it's before Thanksgiving week, the
no, but the
17th.
paperwork that's gonna be needed in a week or two is gonna be really difficult, extremely.
You know, I would also say, I think there are probably 10 distribution elements that are going to be high priority, that are going to be in there immediately.
Yeah.
And you know, the manufacturers, you know, if you're not trying to move product all around the state, you still need temporary state license, but it's not as imperative. And so that's one thing that the county might consider prioritizing is distribution applications in that process, because that's the link in the chain that you know, there's no distro.
Well, we could prioritize distribution.
But distribution is not, this is what's crazy. For a land use perspective, distribution really only happens at the facility from where the distribution is occurring.
Right.
They're not going to be issuing distribution licenses for companies to distribute, only from where they're being located from.
You could issue input standing for the business based on their location.
And that's all we're going to
That's all we
look
need for
at. And
you.
so we know a lot of people are probably only going to need a business license, but those people that are going to need the use permit or the administrative permit, that's a whole other program.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But
So those people that are doing this from right zoning, yeah, it's just a business license. And those are like, those could go to the front of the line.
And so, so if you have for instance, if you have a business license, that should serve as
That's
your other authorization for the state.
That's all your issue.
That's actually even better than other authorizations.
Yeah, but that's great, so long as the county's cool with that, and that's perfect, because if people have a business.
But I'm afraid that it will take longer to even get the business license because it still gets referred to 3 agencies.
It's just that we, you know, right now somebody comes in with a business license and everything's in order. I mean, the big thing will maybe the structures that people are looking
So
That's the problem.
That's what I'm worried about.
because we're into commercial.
Yes.
And this is full-blown commercial stuff, so it may be a whole.
And then we have CAL FIRE that has to sign off,
Depending on
or some fire.
But not necessarily CAL FIRE.
Yeah, it depends on where they're located. So commercial is a lot different than the cultivation.
Yep.
So Mary Lynn, given what we've just talked about and the close proximity to the holiday as well, and is there any help that we can give planning, and is there any help we can give planning?
No, you're not allowed to retire.
So we already talked to Waco.
Good.
They're up and running.
Okay, good.
You know, we need to move. My real concern is that, you know, you're going to make your application, how's it set up now? You'll make your application through the tax collector's office. That's going to start. It'll come over to us. And my biggest concern is about the structure that these facilities are going to be. But with that said, we're also looking at, I wasn't going to bring this up. I was going to wait for the big surprise when you guys all read the ordinance, but looking at just doing a temporary business license. You've made your application for your commercial structure. That's just, you've got to have your applications in. So anybody that thinks they need to have a use permit or administrative permit, and I know Locana, we're working with those guys now, your application in. Do that
I was
now.
going to suggest that also in terms of, is there any way, and I know you're the planning end and not the building end, but I wonder if there's any way that we could arrange for inspections of facilities so that somebody from the county has gone to the location.
I can't. I don't know what services do. That's not, typically we don't do that.
Even for an inspection fee?
Well, they can't tell you what you need. That responsibility falls on you, and hire someone to tell you what you need to do to make the structure compliant for whatever business it is you need.
I think it's going to go back to is what is the state going to allow as what good standing?
Right.
You know,
Or
is that going
authorization.
to be just your, I've gone in and submitted my application? They'll probably go for that because
I think so, because they have a timeline. I mean, I would be surprised if they don't.
and that they're going to be leaving it up to the local jurisdiction to determine.
Because of all that, they're going to wash their hands of the state.
I also want to revise, I think my submittal, that's manufacturing, processing, and distribution.
It's all non-cultivation. Retail, right, you've got,
Retail already have business license.
well, we don't,
Certain groups, they're easy. You're just going to come in and get your new business license.
we get a new one.
That's easy.
And so they don't require the new business license, not the pre-existing business.
I thought it's when it gets renewed.
For dispensaries, no, because they have to come in, there's a whole new city law with that. They have to come in and pay their new, retail. It's lower fees. Yeah, we get
It's lower? It's lower?
They do need to come in and get this. That's all it is. And we already cleared those, so we have a reference to your existing business license. It should be
Cake.
over the counter kind of stuff.
Okay, so that's what I was confused on, is that, for instance, it says have a business license. No.
No,
They're getting.
we don't have
Yeah.
business license to give them or whatever.
So they are, by getting that application submitted for their use permit, they apply for, and this could change, we're going to the board on Tuesday, they might change it. They could go in, apply for their business license through the tax collector's office. We check it, we say, oh, well, they need to have building this, this, and this, but we're going to give you this provisional license. You have a certain period of time to get your use permit and everything in and then you'll, so if the state's going to take provisional business license or temporary business license or whatever we're calling it, that
Would be the other authorization, and that's good enough. That's what I'm thinking. Now, when we get further down the road, and if there are delays, we'll deal with that later.
So we have about 10 minutes. Go ahead, you can ask a question, but I want to schedule a next meeting.
Tuesday, we've got zoning clearance even on the coast for retail.
that's what Matt's
You
meeting.
did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know it was floating around there. So,
That's what we focused on, was
Okay.
why I gave you that.
okay.
And again, kind of throughout this large number, and I think that's going to be by the.
I would say you just scared me with that.
That's why I want to back it up.
I was thinking 25 to 50.
I think that'll be by the end of the year, you'll see 100. And I think, again,
Like in the end of the fiscal year or the calendar year?
Calendar year.
end of calendar. And so, I think you're going to see retail and distribution ready to roll. Manufacturing, some.
I think we'll see a couple of, because we won't see,
Not as many.
no.
Yeah, and really,
Well, that's easy. So how are we dealing with the micro business aspect of
I
this?
don't know, because that's a whole nother game at the moment.
it's,
Micro businesses do have to get separate licenses, so it seems like, at least for this process, it wouldn't interfere.
No idea.
well, the other question is.
I'm afraid of it, just because of the state and everything that's like this, I know what's going on.
It's a big ball of wax. Everybody's struggling. And the hope is that, from the county perspective, we can authorize these other, light manufacturing, processing, whatever distribution looks like under the microbusiness, to be authorized as uses to the cultivation that the microbusiness is predicated on. And that's,
We're hoping
because that's been one of the issues, is that the microbusiness was predicated on a cultivator wanting to do these other things, and it has gotten switched around to be like a retail focus that might do these other things, and it was designed to go from cultivator and have these other uses as ancillary
But then I think in our ordinance, we talked about depending on what zone. So if you have a manufacturing facility and that's your primary use, those are all micro businesses under the industrial use or the commercial use or whatever. So it's very basic.
But most specifically, that essentially the goal with the microbusiness license, any business cultivation is an authorized use, any zoning, that would also be able to do a microbusiness license with these other aspects of it as ancillary uses. So whether on rangeland or upland residential or whatever, that would be a possibility. And that's been the land use struggle from local jurisdictions perspective all around the state. It's like, whoa, this is a whole different ball of wax that we're not going to authorize all these things.
So I'm just going to put the word out that if anybody needs a use permit or an administrative permit, get it in now. Because that gives us time to determine the complete application, because we're not going to give clearance on temporary business license if we don't have a complete application in our hands.
All right, I'm going to take over now.
Okay.
We have about 10 minutes, and I just want to make a comment. And you only have one more item to go through, right? Okay. So I just want to say, as far as creating the system for submitting affirmative local good standing certificate, et cetera, that this is something that within county staff we can work on in the cannabis unit if ag and planning agree with that. I mean, we wouldn't work on it without you, but this would be something that could come out of the cannabis unit, which could save some time. And the issue around legislation in 18 to do track and trace problem, I'm not quite sure what track and trace problem you're speaking of. Oh, you're talking about at the state level. So at the state you're reflecting. Okay. I am a firm supporter of track and trace at the local level, but I know we have to deal with the state. So this is something we can work on and can also help with the get it in writing to the state. So something we can work on together, and SIGPA could help us. And we're actually, we've got some plans in the works to work with the state and SIGPA. So we could talk about that at some other time. So with all of that said, the next item, in case you're okay as far as participation in Canopy, did you want to do any updates? Okay. I don't think we're going to talk about questions, but what I want to talk about is what we do next. So someone's going to look.
There's a few changes that Jude is going to make.
Okay.
I will email her the few that I wrote down, and then she can add her and email it.
The cast, you can know it's cast, yeah. So
by probably, but I'm going to do mine morning.
So are we thinking that once this document is finalized, basically the changes and it's finalized, that we would be ready to do an update to the board with this document? Is that what you want to do?
As quickly as possible.
The only thing that keeps gnawing at me is what we said. There's so much unclear out of Tuesday's board meeting.
You're talking about the 10th?
Last day.
I would say that there were not that many changes actually made within the ordinance, other than we updated the table quite a bit. Now, you're not going to see a big change in the ordinance, other than we adding in the
Because people stood up and made a lot of suggestions.
they did.
Okay, so
there was no direction.
So let me tell you what we're doing with building requirements is we're meeting on the 12th, and we're going to finalize what Scott and Michael Lafont have together, and then our goal is to go to standing committee on October 16th. I think if it could work quickly on this, that possibly we could do an update to the board. Do you think we can do October 17th? Okay.
I have a question. Well, my only question about it is that if we're trying to submit something to the state while state's writing their emergency drafts, anything that we could do to expedite this?
So what we could do is we could do an agenda summary and end this up as you're going to, and we can have an agenda item on the 17th. And I don't know what the agenda, what the forecasting looks like for the 17th in front of me. But to be able to go to the board with this, it should probably be about a 1 hour item with the board. So I'm thinking we have something on the 17th. Is it a cannabis item, or is it just?
It'll be the second reading.
It'll be second reading, so that should be nothing, shouldn't take any time.
There's a state license workshop on the 17th in Sacramento.
Okay, if you don't do that,
I'll go to the board.
I'm going to tell you, if you don't do that, we're not going to get in front of the board
Not
until
until-
November 7th.
I
So
can, somebody to present it with me.
it would be great for you to present. Jude, you'll be there.
Yep.
Julia
I
will
was
be
gonna
there.
too.
All right.
I can't make
So,
it Sac,
so let's,
I'll be here.
let's clean this up. We'll do agenda item, and we'll get this in front of the board. And so I guess my other question with this, though, is are we going to, provide it to the board basically as is, you know, from the working group, which is all of you, or do we want to even draft a draft letter, or shall we just present it? Maybe we just present it and ask the board for direction. So do they want us to draft a letter for them, or do we want to just leave it like this and have the board address it as
Well, if you want to be ready to take it to the state, you should have some kind of letter ready to go, Brian.
yeah. Is everybody in agreement with
Maybe
that?
a cover letter and
Okay.
then a.
So you guys clean this up, send it over, and between Kath, Sarah, Janelle, and myself, we'll put it together, do a cover memo, and we'll turn it back around so you can see it. But I'd like to, if you really want another meeting, do you think we need to meet next week, or you think we can just do all of this via email? We'll decide.
I hate to put squeaky wheels out, but I mean, what's complicated, let's say for me, is I made simple suggestions, two simple suggestions on Tuesday that got bypassed, and my ability to apply for a temporary apply for a business license here in the county was predicated on my understanding of what the state requirements were, but now our county requirements are out of sync. We went back to a 1,000-foot setback, but 600-foot, which is what the state says. We've still got church in there in the setbacks, which none of.
But you're
existing, you're exempt.
You're exempt from all that.
Exempt from all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, you're existing.
Don't have to worry about the fact that the county and the state are not in sync anymore.
You're grandfathered in.
I don't know about whether you worry about the state, but as far as the county, you're fine.
As far as the county.
No, not me in the state. I mean in the state requirements, but not in the county.
You are, you're grandfathered in.
That one section in the ordinance.
Okay, but I'm not gonna worry.
About the dispensary.
Steam ahead.
All right. Okay, so question,
And along, something along the lines.
You read it.
Great, perfect.
okay, so the question on the table is, can we do all of this via email? I think we need to meet again.
Should be determined.
Well,
There's not going to be time. Because if we're going to
suggest
meet, I know you're joking, but you hear what,
I'm gonna suggest this, if
it takes a lot to get
Casey,
stuff in
Jude,
front of the
and
board.
Hannah can commit to emailing to Jude everything by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. It's just one thing that you have to do, security, tonight. And Jude can commit to by, the
Write it down,
day.
Kath, because we're holding to it. Write it down.
Well, by the day tomorrow, see, I've got,
Okay,
the two things that I
by Monday,
require
before Monday.
before Monday.
Before Monday, getting it to Cass, then hopefully that gives you guys enough time to turn around
If
and
we
get it.
if we get it by Monday, Janelle, I'm looking at you.
It's
Get this-
holiday.
Yeah, we're
sorry.
not here, okay.
Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you for that. So if we get it by Tuesday, we can do an agenda summary and a cover memo, which basically, yeah.
Okay.
And put this,
We're our special meeting Tuesday.
A draft letter?
Which we're fine.
yeah, okay, all right, we'll do it.
And then we
Yeah,
publish it
yeah.
Thursday.
Okay, so we'll do
We
this.
don't need to meet.
You get it, that's really good. You get it to us by Monday, all right? We need one. No.
I'm just laughing because
Like, just, I'm not in a really good week. So,
we're good.
No. we'll do it.
We'll get it.
We'll do it. We'll
We'll make it work.
We just get it to.
Now, as far as presentation, though, you guys are actually one step ahead of the building requirements.
Can get it to us.
A working group now, because now we're going to talk about presentation. We didn't do that earlier. So presentation, we're going to look at Casey, Jude, and Hannah to present this to the board. Okay, we'll look at Jude and Casey. So we'll talk before the 17th. But basically, presentations, you guys have spent more time in the boardroom than
Anybody?
yeah. So, I mean, really, the chair calls on the item, I introduce them and walk through it. I turn it over to you all. You talk about, basically that.
This is your day. You don't have to.
No 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Oh, nice.
I am, actually, Janelle is putting this into the clerk of the board as a 1-hour item. And we think that will work.
Yeah.
All right, and I mean, it could be an hour and a half
So,
if we need to, but.
would it be possible, so without bypassing another meeting, would it be possible, when would you be able to send us the draft letter?
Probably either Tuesday or Wednesday, but you guys are going to be there.
She's talking the 10th, right? Yes. Second, that's till 17th.
But that's when
We're going to be there on the 17th.
Oh, okay.
Turn this language in by the 9th.
Well,
Yeah.
we can make that,
Okay.
we can make things work.
That's, we're gonna get it after we
All
get
right,
here.
tell her, you tell her what to do. All right, yeah, we're good, we're good.
So that does mean in order to continue after this push, we should schedule something for maybe 3 weeks from now so
Yeah.
that we could pick up. Does that make sense?
Probably the last week in October, the week of Halloween, or the week in November, what works.
You know, get some more costumes.
At Tuesday, there's a board meeting probably.
No, there isn't, it's the 31st, there's no board meeting, unless somebody screws up. And we have to do an extra board meeting, so, and let's hope that doesn't happen. All right, so shall we look? Are we gonna look at Halloween?
Yes.
We should have a potluck.
Drink. Bring out that branding we've been waiting. Yes, but we have to meet off county premises for that.
Yeah, no, there's actually a policy that says you can't have alcohol on county premises.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. No written, but I'm okay. I'm clear.
So
I following my charge.
Back to the olden days, they had like lunches.
So what do you think about, I have agenda meeting at 10, what do you think if we do 11 to 1, would that work? Actually, it's on the 30th. Yeah, because we're not going to have anything on that day, okay. So this will be the,
We can't have anything.
After you send that out?
Yeah.
Because
You'll get that.
all right, I'm not gonna bother putting it in, you'll put it in. Okay, that'll be the 31st, 11 to 1, we'll meet right here in conference room A. And unless something happens and we don't need the meeting.
Yeah.
We'll know. And so I think we're in good shape. I really want to thank you all, really, and particularly the people that have worked on this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jude, Hannah. And I also, yeah, but I also want to say the working groups, while they have been grueling to get them started and get them going, you all have so pitched in. I mean, working groups of other industry, whether it's, other government or whatever, and you guys have really worked hard, so I really appreciate it.
This is a good opportunity for me to say something I've wanted to say for a while. I have really appreciated how you've handled this whole process, how you've run the meetings, the respect that you've shown for those of us on the phone who can't hear anything, everything, at every stage of the game. I really think you've done well.
Thank you very much. Right. Okay, so with that, everybody on the phone, you heard the plan, and we'll talk again, and we'll see some of you next week on the 10th at the board meeting, and then this presentation to the board, this wrap-up will actually be on the 17th. You all.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good afternoon.
Okay, all right.
I know, good work, good work.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being willing to put
Yeah,
that.
no problem. It's been my #1 priority. Nothing better than cannabis.